according to 2022 HTTP Almanac, an average website weight was 2.2 megabytes. If we say that this average page has about 1,000 monthly views, it brings us to 25.8 gigabytes of data per year. This 25.8 gigabytes of data per year makes about 9.2 kilograms of CO2. 9.2 doesn't sound too much, no? From my CrossFit days, I do know this is not a big weight. However, as of April 2023, there's over 30 billion of websites indexed on the World Wide Web. 30 billion, 2.2 megabyte websites, you can see where I'm going with this, create 276 million of metric tons of CO2. For the ease of calculation, that's about 276 million Berlin-New York City flights. 276 transatlantic flights. Now we're talking numbers. To put it a bit more into perspective, the total carbon footprint of the internet is currently around 4% of the global one. Aviation, in contrary, it's responsible for about 2%. And yet the other day when I went to check some flights on Lufthansa, I actually got this kind of green fare that you can buy. And this topic is, well, not that much around. It's not that talked about how much is the, for example, aviation or the automotive industry. And I cannot keep myself wondering from why, but I think there is actually quite a simple reason behind this. Digital feels green, doesn't it? Now, when we plug in our devices into the outlet, there's no fumes, hopefully, and it just feels green. It feels clean, no? Comparing to planes, comparing to cars. However, most of us, we do know that digital needs electricity to run. And at this point in time, unfortunately, 80% of the global electricity is made by burning fossil fuels. That number is decreasing, so there is more and more renewable resources every day. However, digital is still not green. Hi, my name is Ines, and I'm Senior Web Performance Engineer, and today I would like to talk to you about carbon footprint on the internet and how we can reduce it. So a bit of a background story here is I started out as a front-end engineer. I did quite some years as a front-end engineer, and bit by bit, I was transferring into this web performance world because I was always very, very interested about the networking part, about how to optimize, how to make it faster. So if you've been to the previous lecture, you heard a lot about it. I was very excited about that one. So he was saying a lot about how to make websites faster and why. And actually, this is another reason why to optimize websites. So it was end of 2020 when I was, watching from my sofa because it's 2020, Google Chrome Dev conference, and there was a talk about amount of JavaScript, and to be precise, amount of unused JavaScript. So by the end of the talk, the speaker calculated this amount of unused JavaScript, converted to CO2 emissions, and compared it to how many trees do we need in order to offset this footprint that it's creating. And to be honest, that was the moment my mind was a bit blown, and I was just sitting there thinking, I never thought about this. So of course, I took my best friend Google to the rescue. I started researching this, and I realized that there is a huge overlap between web sustainability and web performance. So doing a further research, I realized I already know quite some of this. I know the technical parts. I just need to learn web sustainability. So a bit by bit, I brought it to my team as well, and now we are very happy to be talking about this topic, to be working on this topic, and to be as well consulting our clients on both of these topics and helping them reduce the carbon footprint of their websites. So today I want to show you some strategies how to do it. However, before we go into that, we need to learn how to measure it, because before, maybe we don't even have a problem. I doubt that from all the research I did, but it can happen. What I usually do is I kind of check for carbon footprint every single page I go to. It became a bit of an obsession, so I'm not sure if it's good or bad. But for this time, I will show you just on some examples. So I did a quick scan on the Infobip Shift conference. You've all seen the website. So I will just show you a few optimizations opportunities on this website. So where do we start? Is we take a URL and we put it in one of the many tools that exist out there these days, and we'll get reports such as this. So these two are the two most commonly used one. It's a website Carbon and EcoGrader. So they will create it. So the inventor of EcoGrader, Tim Frick, he said that when he was creating it, he wanted something like a lighthouse, but for sustainability. So it also gives you this kind of score. And as you can see, there is some difference in numbers. So this is something that I cannot stress enough, that these measurements are very rough. So the community, when they were deciding how to measure, they decide for progress over perfection. And this is why we do have numbers. However, they're definitely not, let's say, government report-worthy numbers. So they are more relative for our orientation. My favorite one actually is the web page test. So I've been using web page test for years for performance audits, and recently they introduced the carbon control feature. So this is something that I really, I love working with this one, and there is no picture. Let's try. Okay, here we go. So this is the one from web page test, sorry. And you can see here that it gives you few different information. And the two most important ones that you can see is the page weight and the CO2 per new visits, because those are the two that relate. So the kilobytes or megabytes in this case of the page weight together with CO2. So how do we go? How do we go from one to another one? The answer to this is sustainable web design model. So this is the model that was created by community, bit by bit. Again, they went into research a lot of different. They researched a lot of different research. No, they went through a lot of research and found out that this is how we can model electricity that's necessary for a website, for, let's say, delivery of the website. So you can see here that to create this electricity model, we have four different things. We have a data center, so we have electricity needed to power up the data center where our website is stored. We need a network transfer, electricity to push all the kilobytes around. We need end user device, laptops, mobile phones, so all the chargings. And of course, production. This is a huge deal as well. The electricity that's necessary in order to produce the device as well as to get rid of it. So once we model this electricity, only one thing that we're missing is grid carbon intensity. Grid carbon intensity is how clean or dirty the energy is. So what I was saying in the beginning, internet uses electricity, and its carbon footprint comes from generating this electricity. So depending on the country that we are accessing the website and where we have our data center, this grid carbon intensity will vary. So for example, if you're in Iceland, which has 100% clean energy, I guess you don't have to worry about this, so you can leave. But for any other country, there is still a lot of progress to be done. An actual implementation of this model is called CO2JS. So this is a huge shout out to its creators and maintainers, Chris Adams and Farshad Irani from the Green Web Foundation. So most of these tools I already showed you, they have CO2JS as underlining, to calculate all that. I played with it myself. It's quite fun to do it. And of course, it implements two different models. It implements SWD as well as 1 byte. So there is different models other than the one I showed you. However, that one is currently the best one for websites. There's different ones for streaming. There is different ones for applications. However, for the static websites, most this CO2JS and of course SWD model is current standard. So now that we know how we go from, it's here? Yeah, it's here. How we go from 6.65 to 1.89, let's figure out how to make it greener. I changed a bit this part of the presentation because last week something amazing happened. Small background, for almost a year now, I've been a part of W3C community group about sustainable web design. And one of the biggest issue about this topic was there was no standards, there was no guidelines. So it goes a lot towards web performance, to optimization, getting a lot of stuff off your website and all that. When we talk of sustainability itself, not just reduction, we also talk about some aspects of accessibility, about social aspects. However, we've been working on this set of guidelines that will help everyone here get started. So when you want, same for example, accessibility, you have a set of clearly defined rules. How do you make a website accessible? So there are guidelines for this. Since last week, we released this actually on 30th of August. There was an official version from last week on the W3C annual conference, TPAC. We announced the first draft of the guidelines, and now there is officially somewhere to go to and look through all these guidelines. There is many of these, many. We spent, again, over a year working on these, and of course, we're asking for every single one of you a feedback. So this is not perfect. This is just the first draft, and we hope that it will improve with time. So again, huge shout out here to Alex and Tim, our chairs, who did a lot of work on these guidelines, as well as anyone from the team. It was so great working with them and being part of this project. So, here we go. So this is it. This is just the part. Okay. So how we worked and how does this reflect towards the end result is actually we worked in 4 different groups in 4 different areas: user experience, web development, hosting infrastructure and systems, as well as business strategy and product management. So with these 4 different groups, each one worked on their own. I was a part of the web development group, and we created a set of rules for our topics. Now they're all part of the one document. However, they are separated by the topic as well. So this is also one very good place where I can show you how vertical this topic is. So a lot of times when we talk about web performance, we come to this issue where it gets trusted upon developers. And it's not only developers' fault if something's not performing well. It's everyone's fault. Or it's everyone is to celebrate if it's good. So again, from the product owner, designers, content creators, marketing as well, who puts these third parties and pixels that as a web performance engineer, exactly. So this is a very vertical topic, and everyone in the process should be aware of it and should be working on this actively. So what I wanted to do today is actually, as I said, I did a bit of the scan of the Shift conference website. I found a few optimizations points, and I actually want to match it to some of the guidelines. So the first one, and this is the first place to look. So if you want to start, if you're convinced that this makes sense to do this, first place to go is images. So taking more sustainable approach to images. Using web page tests, there's also a Cloudinary, a service that kind of does the analysis of all the images on the page and provides you with something like this. We can see the image. And you can see here, it already gives you what the formats. So one important part of performance, of sustainability, is to use modern formats, because modern formats offer better compression, which again decreases the kilobytes. So what we want to do to decrease the carbon footprint, because the proxy for it is the kilobytes transferred over the wire, we want to reduce the size of the website. So here you can see, for example, this image that could be reduced by almost 60% and still be there and still be displayed to the users. So each of the guideline has this success criterion. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's more. And I'm very happy this was one of the options, because these also, like success criteria for images, also quite well show general success criteria for sustainable website, which is first and foremost, do we really need this? So a lot of times, there is not a need for all the things we put on the website. I have a feeling that it's improving, but there was this a period, I would say a few years ago, when the website just became so bloated with everything, this feature and that feature, and they were never removed. Some of them were used, some were not used. However, first question would be, do we really need this? And this is a question developer cannot answer. Developer has to develop. This is something that content creator can answer or product owner can answer. This is, again, like the verticality of the topic. So if we go back to this, to be honest, I do need this image. As a speaker, when I got accepted to this conference, I went to this website, I saw this image, and I was like, this helped me to see how my stage will look like. So I consider this image to bring me value, which means I would not remove this image. I would optimize it, as I already showed you. So check for the, first and foremost, for the format that is in, and second, for its size. So this is also with the responsiveness of the images. A lot of times when we're using desktops, we serve very big images, and we have to be careful not to go for the size, to go for containers. So this is something that it's a very, very easy, let's say, low effort, high impact win. So this is also something in the guidelines. Each guideline has this impact effort. So just search for the ones with low effort, high impact, such as, for example, this case. With a few lines of code, you can do a huge difference. And we already did like a few months back with the client I'm currently working with. Lazy loading as well. Who here knows about lazy loading? Okay, about half, cool. So lazy loading is a strategy that was added to web development a few years back. Basically, when you see a website, you usually see something first, what can fit inside of your viewport, and then you have something that's called the fold, like the newspaper fold. So everything that's below the fold can be, let's say, kind of loaded for later, also what was explained a bit in the previous talk. So it can just be loaded the moment the user needs. So this is, again, one of the very important strategy is load when it's needed, and of course, when user asks for it. So there is, unfortunately, none of the images on the site is lazy loaded, which means every single image, and it's actually quite a scroll. No, the homepage of the Shift conference has quite a lot of scrolling. So actually, with lazy loading images, probably a faster user experience as well as the reducing of the carbon can be achieved. Sizing, and of course, offering users to deactivate images, because we have a lot of these images that are so-called decorative. So giving a user opportunity to deactivate them is something that's also quite beneficial. And management and usage. So how do we manage these images? Do we delete them after we don't need them? How do we serve them? From what? Where do they sleep? Where do they exist? So this is more or less the success criteria when it comes to images. So as you can see, there is quite some nice tweaking that can be done in order to reduce this actually quite fast. And continuing in the same tone, so the second optimization opportunity I found was fonts. Infobip Shift conference has one font. It has 3 different files, which is by all the rules of web performance acceptable. However, as you can see, the sizes are quite large. So this is again the question, if this is being used or not. The conference, the site has only one language, and I went to check for the special characters. No, there is Croatian speakers, and we have all of those, Čež, and also I kind of went to check, and these are not included, which means only set that we need is Latin. And as well, important is the format that is done. Total weight of these fonts is 467 kilobytes. No? So if you take into consideration that the average site was 2.2 megabytes, that's quite a percentage of the, let's say, average website when it comes to fonts. Interregular has 149 kilobytes. So like you see, first thing what we can optimize is changed to WAV2. WAV2 is the most modern format, and this is what we recommend generally, again, from performance, from sustainability side, to serve your fonts in. It gets into CSS, which means cascading, so it also gets nicely, of course, let's say kind of not polyfilled, but replaced in case of no support. However, all the browsers support this WAV2. And then my favorite part of this goes, serve what you really need. So as I already said, only thing we need is Latin characters. If we subset it to Latin characters only, we get 16.7 kilobytes. So I'm a bit crazy about these stuff. So on my personal website, I actually went one step further and I subsetted my fonts to only my name and surname. So it has 9 characters, the whole font. And I went from 40 to 4. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that of course, you can always over-optimize it, but you don't have to sacrifice anything. So there is no need to sacrifice your brand. There is no need to sacrifice how it looks and feels and all that, but you can still do a lot of good with just a few small tweaks. Sustainable hosting provider. That's the one, actually. We're going to do this again. Oh, here we go. So choosing a sustainable hosting provider, that's for example, one of these. When you saw that graph I was showing in the beginning, so you have where performance and sustainability don't overlap, so this is it. So this will help your website be sustainable, however, it won't affect performance much. So choosing hosting, choosing a data center to put your website, that is using green energy or compensating for its services. This means green hosting. On the Green Web Foundation, you can find as well a form where you can just put your website and you can see if it's hosted green or not. If it's not hosted green, again, I suggest changing to one of these because it's as well quite a big benefit. And you also get this nice sticker that you can put in your footer saying that you're hosted on the green host, and of course raise awareness from their users that this is even a thing, that we even like what is even green hosting. And the last but not least, I will just like to touch upon, because this is a huge topic. So browser caching is a huge topic. It's a very complex one, but it also could be optimized on this website. That's why I wanted to touch upon it. So browser caching is storing a local copy of your website on the device. So the, let's say, most sustainable kilobytes are the one that never had to go through the network. They still have a bit of their processing. However, they never had to go through all this road, through the whole routers and switches. So having them cached in your browser can also make a huge difference when it comes to both performance, so getting this instant, snappy website, as well as sustainability with not using that much energy. So those are 4. And here is many, many, many more. I actually went to count them, but I stopped at around 25. And yeah, I said like, okay, you just check for them. So it's a GitHub repo where this is stored. So please go there. It's not a beach read, so it's W3C guidelines. So they are not super easy to process. So bit by bit, but it's also not as accessibility, so it's not in any order that you have to go, 1, 2, 3. You can pick whichever one you want. As I said, search for the, low effort, high impact. Those are always the best one to start with. Check images and all that, and there is a lot of information here. And of course, give us feedback, because this is something that a small group of people did, and we always want as much feedback as possible. If you're interested to know more, so as well as W3C guidelines, I already mentioned the Green Web Foundation. If you're more of a backend or a system, I suggest to start with Green Software Foundation. So they have this. This is also what I did for Start. It's a great course that also gives you a Linux Foundation certificate. It's free, and it gives you a bit of an overview how this whole part of electricity works. Also with where do you put these processes and everything. So it's a bit more, of course, it's a bit more backendy, but it's super, super good resource to start. Climate Action Tech also has a great Slack where you can join in and enjoy the discussions. Sustainable web design, I would say, is the entry point into the topic. This is also where I started. They have it everything by the roles, so it's very good. And they are planning to redesign their site now to implement the guidelines. So the W3C guidelines will hopefully soon be on the sustainable web design, more user-friendly. So I still wouldn't recommend it as a beach read, but more or less, let's say, easily digestible. Sustainable UX, if you're an UXer, of course, and if you prefer to do the book, there is Digital Sustainability, Sustainable Web Design, which are kind of the Bibles of the topic, and a few more as well to give you a bit more on this topic. And of course, it's there. You can always talk to me as well. I'm happy to give you. So unfortunately, this is a very short slot for me to say everything I have to say about the topic. So please reach out to me, ask me any questions you have, any suggestions. And also, if you decide, share your journey to reducing your carbon footprint of your website with me. Thank you. Okay, yes, any questions? Sure, is there a mic for, okay, cool.
Hi. So, this is a very interesting topic, but how could you start this in a company that this topic would never come along?
Could you please repeat it? I didn't hear well.
Yeah.
Oh, cool, now.
Is it better? Okay.
Yes, perfect.
How would you bring this to a company so that you could start working on this, so that the company can be aware of how important this is?
Okay, so I guess now the question, just a small context question is, as a product, so do you think about as a product company of your company you work for example, as a client as a product? Okay. So this is a very hard part, because I've been struggling with this as a web performance engineer for years, because I consider, having also as a huge rage clicker, I don't wait, So it's just, as was also said in the previous talk, like these days you don't want to wait. There is so many websites that are faster, so we don't want to wait. You're just going to drop it and go to someone else. So this is also how I kind of went into the web performance. It was like, I do want to optimize for myself as well as for everyone else, so all of us have good user experience. And this is what it is. In the core of the whole topics, all of these topics are user experience. It's making it better for the user. So sustainable web design itself is defined as the, designing, putting people and planet first. So I guess in this case, what we do as well, since there is a huge overlap, is we put forward both topics, web performance and sustainable web, and see which one people get interested on. So in the end of the day, both of these, and the word I learn works, to be honest, I kind of blame myself for being stupid years after year not using this, but the word that works is money. Of course, so I was going around, okay, but you need this in order to be that or that. And then in one moment when I just lost, my nerves, I was like, but you're losing money. Everyone started listening. Because of course, how are you losing money? Infrastructure. So if you have this bloated website with a lot of images, with a lot of JavaScript, with a lot of these things, you have to pay for infrastructure where it's hosted, no? So what happens as well, just think about it on a lower scale as your Google Photos. No, so every time you reach the limit, you have to pay more. You have to pay more, no, to get the bigger plan. And now put this to enterprise level. No, so basically we're talking €1-2 here, which is like, I don't feel like cleaning up my photos because I can just pay €1 and have another terabyte. However, when we put this on an enterprise level, it can do a reduction of the cost. And then, for example, that was the first, just kind of the storage. Then the second one as well, what we did at so caching, in this case, I use browser caching because I found it on the website. However, caching of the requests as well, because if the request, depending how many times request hits the server as well, money. No, so what we did on one client a few years back is that our architect, we were just like talking to each other, and he's like, you know what, I'm just going to do something because I have the access, so let's see how this works. And he cached the request to, I think, 5 seconds. So it was something very, very short span, because of course it was no data such as, stock exchange or something. It's quite a static data that doesn't change too often. So we cached that, and their cost reduced by 80%. And they were like, what the hell happened? And he's like, well, maybe I did something to kind of improve that. So basically, this is a first point that you can always bring up is money. You're going to save money. And then, of course, increasing for sustainability, increases for web performance, for core web vitals, which gives you a SEO boost. And in the end of the day, as I already said in the beginning, better user experience. So hopefully there will be legislations about it as well. So the guys from the community as well talked to European Parliament a few weeks back. So the stuff is happening, hopefully, because we all know without legislation, nothing's happening. So hopefully that also answers your question, at least a bit.
It does. Thank you.